All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. Commissioners check-in. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. It's 1:04 p.m. My name is Ty Mentzer, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair Fournier is at the EDC meeting and will be joining us later. Commissioners Mejia, Grant, and Klaus are here. County Manager Leonard Hernandez, Assistant County Manager Josh Cummings. Public virtual attendance is available on our Thurston County YouTube channel. First up, we have reports on external boards and commissions. And anybody want to kick it off? Commissioner Klaus?
I don't have anything that I haven't already reported on. Well, the only thing, this is upcoming, but it's for tonight, the Regional Housing Council meeting. I will be presenting a letter. It was provided to me, I didn't write it, but because the chair of the Regional Housing Council has a conflict of interest with presenting legislative items because of his day job, I'll be presenting a letter to Representative Dolio in support of Senate Bill 6191 and House Bill 2276 related to the Affordable Homes Act. So I just wanted to see if my seatmates had anything they knew about that or input they wanted to provide before the meeting. If not, that's okay, because I'll provide an update afterwards as well. But I just wanted to kind of proactively see if there's anything that my seatmates want me to bring to that meeting later tonight.
So the RHC is going to be providing a letter of support for this bill. Mm-hmm. What did you call it?
Affordable Homes Act.
Affordable Homes Act. And is there anything else that anybody knows about it?
I mean,
do you know much about it?
I know about it. It's just it's an act. I mean, it's money for homes. I mean, essentially, I think it's
funding.
It is something that has continued, and they're continuing to, like, the discussion at the State Advisory Council on homelessness this last week was that there's been pressure to, they're afraid they're going to take money from it. So essentially, they asked all of the counties, and we asked everyone to send letters in so that just to show support.
Yeah.
And so please don't touch our money is kind of what that comes down to. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. Anything else? Nothing else?
Nope, just that.
Mr. Grant, anything you'd like to report?
Well, I just, I know, maybe this is, so I went to the Law and Justice, this is Law and Justice, I'm not to step on toes.
That's totally okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up some things that were flags to me around the Law and Justice meeting, not flags, just conversation, but I'm really excited, of course, that, the prosecutor's office is working on making, their cases, they're going to get it out there, But and I did mention this in Law and Justice, but I also want to mention it to you guys. I did bring it up there, that lessons learned, from, it's hard for me to shut off like what I've seen and my experience I've had in the past of working at different agencies that deal with these exact same set of data. So cases, it's very complicated and complex. There's a lot of, each county does something differently. There's a lot of like one-offs and different kinds of assumptions you can put on data. So my concern, and it's, or a thing that I want us all to be thinking about, is how to represent the county with data consistently. Because Sheriff Sanders also has a project going on over here where he's got they've got a dashboard that they're going to present data. It's going to be the same data, right? Arrests. It will be cases, referrals to cases, ones that were, not referred. I mean, of course, the prosecutor has, much more steps after that. It will be who's on least restricted alternative. All these different kinds of things happening in the data world with people who run the dashboards that have different assumptions to calculate things differently. And when I think about the public, I think about when we say, well, where'd that come from? Well, it's the county. And then someone says, well, where'd that come from? Well, the county. So if we have essentially, in my opinion, like as county commissioners, we are the county, and that we're supposed to make sure that if it's coming from the county, that one part of the county doesn't say one thing and one doesn't say the other. That's it. That's my whole thing of, I want to flag that, make sure we're all thinking regionally about data, and that's it. Yeah.
I wanted to provide some background.
Good.
Sure. I have a comment, I'll save that for later.
You're spot on. And I think that was one of the interests in hiring the criminal justice program manager and creating that position was because, and I'm going back from my time as an employee, how siloed our criminal justice partners were. They were meeting, but it wasn't in an effort to create data. The data piece is actually fairly new, the data collection piece in Thurston County, especially in our criminal justice programs. And so one of the things that Leah was working on was helping everyone start collecting the data. And one of the really amazing things she did last year is she had a data dashboard, and everyone got to present their data and seeing like, okay, where can we start integrating and collaborating. And it was one of her major projects of like, how do we have all of that data that our criminal justice stakeholders are gathering and have it in one piece. So you're very spot on with that, and it's a very keen observation, yeah. Because
And I did meet with Leah before she left, and we had, a conversation about this, and I was aware of some of that discussion. And I just want to emphasize it, I think, just to make sure that because it is the law, and I've kind of gone back and reviewed, like, where does this live? Like, if this was, where would the decision-making people be, right, in our county? And you please, this is the part where I love feedback, but, I could be wrong, but that really, I looked at who's supposed to be at the Law and Justice Council, and it's like everybody would be there, but who was actually here was just the prosecutor's office and a couple judges. So with that, it would be like, if it would have been awesome if, John or, the prosecutor was presenting this data dashboard and Sheriff Sanders was here and his staff were, on there looking. So then they could go, oh man, that's not, I guarantee you that, without some sort of coordination like with what Leah was doing, it's just going to get kind of weird, and it could, I just hate to see us publish things that don't match, the county, in the paper. I always listen to my head. It says, one sheriff says this and the prosecutor said that. So then I guess my question then would be for Leonard of like, can we make sure or flag this as a top priority for whoever fills in, or as a top priority for Nate or whoever's doing this work, to continue that conversation to make sure that our assumptions around data is aligned before it goes public?
So can I weigh in? So everything you're saying is right, and it's a great aspiration. I would just give one cautionary note. County government is unlike city, state, or it's unlike any other kind of government in that we're dealing with separately elected officials. So if I think everyone's on board for the project and wanting to do what you're saying, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
But there is a limitation. Like if Sheriff Sanders, for example, said, I want to present this data in the way I want to present it, he has absolute latitude to do that. And we as commissioners cannot stop him from doing that. And whereas at a city or at the state, the executive could stop that.
Right.
We cannot. And so we need to continue, working together, collaborating, messaging why it's important, and, keeping everyone on the same train, because I think it's valuable. We also, but if we get into a situation where we have those crossed, then, it's always a constant education process to the external world, like, hey, county government's different.
Right.
And this is data from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office.
Right.
It's not, you just can't talk about the county the way you can talk about the city or the state.
Right.
Because the independently elected prosecutor, he is absolutely legally entitled to present the data in the way he sees fit. And if it doesn't match with what the sheriff's doing, no one can, that's just a problem without a solution.
Sure.
So anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, we can't be the actual, like, it can be the top priority of our criminal justice program manager, and I agree with Commissioner Mejia 100%. That was a big part of what Leah was trying to help. But, it can only kind of be aspirational.
Right, we can, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I am aware,
Yeah.
I was laughing, but this is a public meeting, but trust me, DSH just doesn't have all of those things in a row either, so people did whatever they wanted. And
Yeah.
so we had lots of different data too.
But
right?
you could take that
Yeah.
message to the
Yeah.
top and go,
Yeah.
we're not doing that anymore. And like,
Which that
we have
was-
some limitations on
Yeah.
our ability
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just control that.
Right, and I think that's why, again, you'll find that I try to get proactive instead of reactive for it and on some of these things, because I think what we do have a role in is just, being able to provide some help to encourage them to be working together, right? Or to be thinking together, to be talking about data at a regional level instead of just
And just one of the, like, for example, one of the things the board invested in financially, because we deal with the finances,
Right.
is software upgrades for our sheriff. And the selling point from the sheriff was that this will allow us to compare data and communicate with our cities because they're on similar platforms. So, I mean, we can use,
Right.
so if I'm picking on the sheriff, he's totally on board, I think. But like if he were to go sideways, we could go, hey, sheriff, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you told us that we were going to be able to work this data through and coordinate. And that was one of the reasons we, funded your software upgrade or whatever, as an example.
Yeah.
Same with the prosecutor. We invested in a major upgrade for the defense and prosecutor. Part of it is how they exchange discovery and stuff. E-prosecutor, e-defense. It's like and then there's a trade name to the system. I can't remember what it's called, but part of it was also about ability to collect data, create dashboard. I think that's kind of the process the prosecutor's working through.
Sure.
And then we had our whole justice counts thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say justice counts is part of the prosecutor is
Okay.
behind that, and I'm
Okay,
aware of
good.
justice counts and.
Okay, good, yeah, and that seemed good too, but it was like, part of me was like, when I heard about justice, like, it was an opportunity we couldn't not plug into, but it was also like, well, I don't want yet another dashboard that,
Right.
is confusing people or
Sure.
whatever.
Sure,
So
absolutely,
hopefully-
okay.
But I am concerned about, so I haven't been on Law and Justice Council for a little over a year. We were typically getting sheriffs and law enforcement. I mean, if that's not, if attendance has been dwindling, that's not good.
Well,
Looking at Commissioner Klaus, I mean, how's the attendance
you
been?
have to remember that Leah was on maternity leave, and during the maternity leave, they didn't meet at all.
Oh, so it needs to be back up, okay.
I just-
How long was that?
Well, she was out for 3 months. I'm sorry, I'm like looking towards.
Yeah, I think she's about, well, maybe almost 4 months.
4 months, and
It
so,
meets every other month, right?
Huh.
So that would have been a couple of meetings missed.
Well, in the charter, I went over, she gave me all of the information, and so I guess this is another question I have is, then would be, like, in the charter, that, was written by most of them, you go way back, but, that it's supposed to be run by the prosecutor's office.
Yes.
So does the charter just need to be updated, or why, if the
We
meeting,
updated the charter, and
Not the most
is there a
updated.
statutory requirement that prosecutors?
everyone has, yes, that every county has a law and justice.
Yeah, but does I can't remember if it dictated that the prosecutor be the,
I don't know about that, I just
because
remember.
I know we went through the charter and tried to make some upgrades. It's in terms of, and here's another thing that, like, since we're on Law and Justice Council, like, there was always like, there's a tension, right? Like, there was always like, we should add this person, we should add that person. And obviously there's a good argument for bringing in more voices and more people, but then there's also a countervailing thing, which is like, when a body like that's meeting infrequently and it gets too big, it doesn't become important to people, like, they don't, it doesn't mean, they don't prioritize it because it's like, I'm just one little voice of, 30 people and I'm not gonna get to say much and I'm not really involved and attendance is really sporadic from meeting to meeting. It can almost be more effective if it's slightly tighter. So I was always kind of the voice, kind of the minority voice saying, well, why don't we just like get the key people there and really get them working, versus like keep expanding it, but then people aren't showing up from month to month and people forget about it. I mean, when I started, it was quarterly. So I was kind of the instigator to move it to at least bi-monthly to keep it more, so work could get kind of done. Because quarterly is just glacial. Like, I just don't feel like anything can get done quarterly unless there's subcommittees going in the interim. Commissioner Klaus?
That was the exact conversation I had with John Thunheim when I first got elected and appointed to the Law and Justice Council. I was saying some of the same stuff you're saying about, having such a large group, but it's like a large group of really brilliant people, and having that many people in a room, you know, one of the things that I was told was that the reason we don't have monthly meetings is because there just wasn't enough to discuss. And I told him, if we have that many smart people at a table and there's not enough being discussed, then we're just not being creative enough, because there's so much to discuss. And I think I'm resuming my monthly meetings with him here pretty soon. So, but I'm happy to bring this conversation back to the Law and Justice Council when we meet next, because I think this is really important, so.
Yeah, trust me, I can find a whole bunch of things to put on the calendar. You know, I guess, and I preemptively, you know, thinking about this as an important step in our job of making a new courthouse. You know, because when it comes down to, you know, figuring out how many people come in and out of the courthouse, how many people go before a judge, how many people are in Superior Court versus, like, there are all of this, you know, there are caseload assumptions, and there is the need to be able to have that data to give us a good idea and to make sure that we are fully prepared to handle the load that we will have in the future. So that's why I automatically start going, but, oh man, I know all about that. So that's it. That's mine.
Have you talked to, I mean, I'm sure do they do exit, maybe Commissioner Mejia, do you know, do they do like exit surveys of all jurors?
Yes, they do a survey of, well, not all jurors, but just the jurors that have served,
Right.
so, yeah.
After they've deliberation?
Yes.
And does that get compiled and reported? Because I hear literally 100% of the people, and dozens and dozens of people who will just, they basically will become poster children for the courthouse when
Yeah.
they'll say,
We should
this was
video
a
them on their
horrible
way out.
experience.
Yeah.
I mean, the court,
We
you
really
know,
should, honestly.
What you doing at the courthouse? Just say,
So I mean, like, but I've never seen that like compiled in a way that I could go, 98% of all Thurston County jurors, like, gave it a 1-star, the facility, or something like that, whatever.
Yeah, the court does compile that data. Might be a good idea to kind of ask them for a copy of that survey that they ask and see if there's suggestions, especially as we're going down this path of like, can we switch maybe some of the questioning on like,
1 through
because,
10.
yeah, usually
Adequacy
it's
of
about
facility.
like, how was your experience in the trial? Like, it's more of like their experience within the case and like the, but I think it would be good. And people on other comments, they usually write, the chairs are uncomfortable, the room is too small, they write all of the,
Yeah, give it to them so that everybody gets to
but I think
respond.
maybe if it's just framed as a question instead of having it as other comments, like, so maybe asking Superior Court for kind of a copy of,
Adequacy of facility.
yeah.
Make sure every juror gets asked. And
Chair, and you and probably Commissioner Mejia could speak way more to this, but from our departing program manager, Leah Landon, you know, she mentioned how much progress the Law and Justice Council had made, even in them all coming together. That it still is relatively a new approach to them meeting regularly, being together. That's why I think it was disappointing that when she went on maternity leave, that means didn't continue. And Leah was working with the team that even before she knew she was leaving, to make sure that there was support so that meetings could be held. So I think there is some opportunity for us to work together on that. But what we have today is a lot of progress, and I'm sure you have more background on how it even came about, and bringing out all those stakeholders together. And that collaboration took a lot of work and a lot of Leah working through, because you're right, there are elected offices and they participate because they believe in collective impact, but we can't require them to participate in some of the things that you said.
yeah, she did such a great job, and, you know, and I just would hate to see that fall to, so that's, you know, you want to, and that's a really important council, I think so. The other thing, and Commissioner Klaus, maybe you can answer on when it comes to boards and commissions. So one of them that I was assigned was the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance, and I was wondering, because I don't know if that's Ty or who, but if someone could give me, and Emily said that it's no longer meeting, and it's something I did my research on it, and I was like, it was there for a reason when it was originally, and it just concerns me that they're not meeting anymore. And I wonder, and I guess this brings me back to that question of like, what is the role of the county when it comes to these boards and commissions? Like, if they're mandated, is it something that we were supposed to make sure it kept happening? Or is it just something we're supposed to be a part of if it was meeting?
Every single one is different, and I don't know the answer to that one.
Right,
I've never
okay.
been involved in that one.
I was never involved in that. I think that was Gary's.
I think the
It's health.
prosecutor knows about it,
No,
right? Is
it's
that the one that
health.
had to do with Medicaid money?
It's Medicaid, yeah.
Oh,
That's why.
Amy, the clerk, has a response.
We received an inquiry, I think from Commissioner Klaus on that one
Yeah.
earlier last year, and we reached out to them to confirm their status. And we learned that the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance merged with its parent company, Choice, and it no longer exists. Their board of directors dissolved all councils connected to the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance as of December 31st, 2022.
That's why those emails are valuable. Good job on that research we did last year.
So you're off the hook on that one. But you're saying maybe there's a need for something, I don't know,
Well, yeah, no, thank you. That answers it. I mean, yeah, I'm just, there's some value of us being part of discussing with, providers who are insurers around the way that we make decisions about Medicaid. But that, I think Joe Avalos and the Thurston,
you're always dialed in.
it's probably being done in that arena, so no worries.
Commissioner Klaus?
I was just gonna say, when I did that research, prior to reaching out to Amy, I saw on the Choice website that John Thunheim actually sits on that board, so there is county
He was
representation,
involved back
but,
when it was active.
yeah.
It's a
So he would-
regional health
If you meet
network,
with him, you
right.
ask him a little more about it,
Yeah.
what they did and what they were, maybe what could be. So,
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Mejia, do you have any external board updates?
I gave Fair Board update
Yep.
yesterday. Again, reminder, July 31st through August 3rd, 2025.
Put it on the calendar.
And then Peacock is the theme. They said they were gonna empty out Party City as they were doing the closing out, so. Okay, Capital League update. So one of the items that we're going to be discussing on Thursday on the Legislative Steering Committee is the retail delivery fee. It's an item that staff are asking for support. This was a study that was done back in 2023. And it was just to kind of see the whether this was an option for Washington State. It is a method that many other states do. And it would basically charge for delivery services, and that fee would go into roads. So as we're talking about motor fuel vehicle tax, this is just another option to be added to that, specifically with the rise in home deliveries that went during COVID. The state is looking at this as an additional funding option for our roads.
Did the state have to pass it, or?
Yeah, so the state is looking to pass this, and they are asking basically all the associations for support. The concerns that WASAC has is how the items are, of course, it's how much funding we would get, and counties and cities would just get a small slice of that, and so they're trying to see if they could get a bigger slice of, if that were to go into effect, just because of, it is within our jurisdiction, and it is our roads that, deliveries are being made on, and so the fact that we are getting a smaller amount of funding is definitely a concern for WASAC. So there is a study that they did. It's a fairly long study. Just based on it, I feel like if it's an option, seeing how short the transportation budget is and the shortfall that the transportation budget has in the state, I would think that would be a good thing to support. That's kind of the way I'm leaning for it, but wanted to see if you have any concerns on the retail delivery fee, if you'll let me know before Thursday. If not, I am inclined to vote in support of it.
Do you have any sense of the scale of it? I mean, what we're talking about, pennies on the
Yeah.
thing, or is it like a $5? I mean, what would it practically look like for somebody ordering something?
So, and I left it upstairs.
Calculation of it.
Is it a bill, though?
No, it's not a bill. It's, I left my issue paper upstairs.
Okay, I can grab it from later.
Yeah, I can give you that information on the cost breakdown. And it wouldn't be,
Like a percentage or?
yeah, it would be a small percentage. But of course, there are some concerns from counties that we are just continuing to tax. And so, but there is a huge gap in services. So there is that big piece. So if you do have any concerns, please let me know
So
before
this is
then.
WASAC trying to develop a position on this.
Yes.
On whether or not we should, more or less, it's asking if we're gonna, am I right, if that we're gonna create some sort of tax associated with delivery?
Mhm.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So for retail, so for that means Amazon or any kind of,
We get a piece of the profit.
it's just, I think the discussion is like, how big of a profit do we get? And it's, you know.
Let's tax the businesses.
Okay, so then, the next thing for the Legislative Steering Committee is that we did vote on the clean energy property tax. And this is a proposal that the CEPTI task force has been working on, which I believe Commissioner Menser has been our representative on it.
Yes.
He didn't let me know there were any concerns, so I voted for it.
I think that, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I was comfortable with where the task force came down. This is how to tweak the property tax system so that when big clean energy, like wind and solar projects get sited in a particular county, they're taxed in a way that doesn't create this weird dynamic where they get a bunch of money, but then it depreciates really fast because it's personal property, and then, but because that moved the levy lid up, it basically increases taxes. So then like everybody else has to start paying the gap as it falls. So
Yeah.
it just creates, so it creates this weird dynamic. And so many states have dealt with this. And so we had many meetings over the summer on how all the different states have tackled it. And then we kind of debated the pros and cons of each one and then voted on one. And I wanted the simplest one. And so that's basically with some slight modifications, we basically landed on kind of the simplest model, which is basically, you know, to just, you change what's taxed. You taxed property, you either tax like, you know, power production, or you tax something that's consistent, so you don't get this weird slide. And, you know, there's a lot of details that the legislature would have to, but we wanted to be able to go to the legislature and say, this is really important, we've done some preliminary work for you, here's our proposed approach, now fix it. So,
Sounds good.
And so that got passed. Thank you so much for your work on that. I know that you were very excited to volunteer for that committee.
interesting stuff.
It was our first meeting, so there were no official votes on any bills, and I did pass on the information on some of the bills that were flagged on to staff.
Are there any ones that are like rearing their heads as like controversial within the LSC?
Not yet, because everything is so early on and everything's shifting, and so as bills are coming in and co-sponsors are signing on to it, some of the language is shifting. So they just flagged a couple of ones that might be of concern, which I've passed on, and but there were, again, everything is so new, so they're just,
Okay. You'll let us know.
Yeah.
as it goes.
And I am meeting today on 12/18, I think it's 12/18, to talk about that one.
Which one's that? 2012?
It's True Blood. It's a DSHS cleanups. It's a DSHS most likely, and others. Looks like it's, you know, coming from Health and Human Services, and kind of, from what I can see, it's something that, you know, we talked about years ago at DSHS, and they're more or less shifting the caseload for ITA, so back to the counties. And so essentially they're saying, instead of, if the counties can't keep their ITA numbers down because they haven't set up their systems, their diversion systems in a way that essentially manages the caseload for the county, and it continues to rise above this caseload amount, then we're gonna make you pay into this fund. And so of course the counties are concerned. So,
that's good to know.
yeah.
That would be a huge concern.
And I
As
see
you
both
said.
sides of it, so,
Absolutely.
right, that I also think that we need to learn to manage our ITAs, but.
And that's
you know,
12-11, you said?
It's 12:18.
Oh, 12-18.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, so I definitely, they need to be involved with that all the way along, you know, everyone needs to be at the table to figure out what's gonna be best for everybody.
Thanks for flagging that one.
And then I also want to remind everyone that February 5th is the Wasac Legislative Reception, and it will be held at Uptown Grill this year.
February 5th.
Yes.
Okay. See if I have the-
That week is gonna be nuts. A lot of people, I do an advocacy on the campus that week, right, because I think I'm gonna go for recovery advocacy and.
And then-
Okay,
Wait 1 sec, I'm not done yet. Just want to give a heads up, so I also serve on the County Road Administration Board, that next week I will be up on the Hill in support of making sure, one, that their budget does not get slashed, because that would, of course, affect all of us. And we are in support of House Bill 1098, which is a local bill that they are heading, and it's actually being heard today in House Transportation at 4 p.m. I signed up in support of it, and if anyone else would like to sign in, this is a really good bill that would help support county roads. I'm happy to send out the link, and it's, you know, they are going against just, of course, they're facing the huge transportation cuts. So county roads, I know, are doing a great job in advocating for county roads and being sure that, you know, we all still get the funding that we need for them.
What was that, House Bill?
1098.
1098, okay.
Gave, for Thurston Regional Planning Council, I gave a small update last year. I do want to say that Commissioner Grant mentioned the profile that they did at the last meeting, and I do agree with her comments that this is a great resource and seeing how we can continue to push this out into the community. I also want to say that when we did the test, I want to report that Thurston County got the first place and last place in that test. So I carried the rear pretty proudly. I was listening to Councilmember John O'Callahan, who was whispering the answers, and he gave me every wrong answer in that. So I will not be sitting next to him when we do this next.
That is so funny. Well, and I'm not very good at those usually, and so I just think
You
that was
killed
all my
her,
higher
yeah.
power. I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know. Seems like.
I don't know why I was listening to John, but he was like, no, he was so sure of himself, and
they're tricky questions, I remember that.
Yeah. But they were tricky.
They're designed to throw you off.
with the BHASO, I did have an interview with the SAO office. They are doing an audit for 2021. So Commissioner Menser, I'm hoping that you were running a tight ship during that time.
No problem.
They're doing, so wait, they're gonna do an audit on 01?
Yeah, 2021,
Okay.
for the year of 2021.
And when is that starting?
It started, yeah, so they do interviews for a board member and staff. And I think they didn't choose Joe this year. I'm not sure which staff were chosen, so.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They came to you and you had an interview with them. Okay, got it. I was thinking, yeah. Got it. Cool.
Okay.
That's it? Okay. Just a couple for me. Sentencing Guideline Commission, we kind of go through the same process with the criminal justice world, going through bills, taking positions. Every Friday at noon, we meet and go through sets of bills. And the ones that I thought were interesting were, there's one called Judicial Discretion Act. And what this would do is allow judges, if you look at the data, it's incredible how much of our court system I'm sorry, not court system, our prison system is clogged up by people serving really long sentences. And there's data that shows that there's diminishing return at a certain point for folks who have served 20 years. I mean, their risk of recidivism or whatever is, very different than when they started their sentence. And so this would allow folks to be reviewed by a court in tiers. And it would be a total of 3,035 cases over 7 years. The first tier would be looking at kids. Anyone who'd served 7 years, who committed their offense when they were less than 17 years old and have served 7 years, they get automatic review by the judge. The next tier would be, committed the offense between the ages of 18 and 24 years old and served 20 years. They would get the next review. And then those who have committed their offense between 18 and 24 and have served 13 to 19 years. So that would be the next tier. And once those tiers are done, that would amount to about a little over 3,000 cases statewide. But
How many? What was the number you said?
3,035
Oh,
cases.
okay, thank you.
What was the bill number?
1125.
My internet's not working.
The next one, which is kind of similar, we were dealing with juvenile overcrowding at Green Hill and all that. There's something called the Youth Hope Act, which is 1111 or 5266. Green Hill kids came up with this, actual folks that are in Green Hill. What it does is, if they've got a sentence where they would be transferred to prison, they get an automatic review point with the ISRB at that point to see if conditions are appropriate, their rehabilitation is advanced, or whatever factors to allow them to be considered for release. So that one got overwhelming support from the Sentencing Guideline Commission. The first one, the Judicial Discretion Act, was a split vote, although we did vote to support it. But the Youth Hope Act was unanimous, 10-0 to 5 abstentions. So that's
And you said that's a Senate and there's an SB and
yeah.
so that means it's gonna go through probably, right? Yeah, so both House and Senate are supporting it, probably started last year.
Yeah. Anyway, those are good ones. There's another one we talked about a lot that Representative Dolio is actually supporting, but it was somewhat controversial. It has to do with safe storage of firearms. So it's about making it putting criminal liability if somebody basically, I don't want to misstate this because it's very technical the way this bill is written, but it relates to the situation where somebody doesn't follow the law regarding securing firearms, and then a kid gets a hold of it or whatever and someone gets killed. What should be the liability of the person that didn't follow the rules and somebody resulted in harm? So it's kind of technical the way it works, but that one.
So is it about the sentencing, like the guidelines for what would happen if they didn't keep it secure?
So let me see if I can answer that with my notes. Because at first I misunderstood it, and then I did understand it, but because there already is a law about that. So it's actually kind of tightening things up in a way. It seemed like it was adding more criminal liability to people, but in a way it was protecting people because it basically said, it clarified the situations where somebody would be subject to the crimes that already exist. And there's a first and second degree of, I forget the name of the crime. It's like negligent storage of a firearm or something. But the Sentencing Guideline Commission opposed it mainly because they thought it was confusing. It was confusing in terms of how it fit into the existing criminal justice structure. I'm only kind of bringing that one up because Representative Dolio is involved, and so you might hear about it because of that. Sentencing Guideline Commission voted to oppose it based on possible duplicativeness and confusing nature of how it fits into existing laws. So it's kind of a technical opposition.
What bill is this?
This is.
I think you said 1111?
No, 1111 was the last one, the Youth Hope Act.
I just closed it.
Oh, that was Hope Act, yeah. 1125.
No, that was the.
I'll get it for
official
you.
review.
This one is 11:52.
11:25.
Yeah, it's just flipped. Yeah, and this one was, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then one other thing I just wanted to kind of give everyone a heads up. I don't remember if commissioners remember the controversy last year about WUI, or the Wildland Urban Interface Code. So, this is about, there were really two sets of problems with the WUI code. One was the mapping as to where this code applies, and then the second was what it makes you do if it does apply. Not everybody agreed about the second part. Everybody pretty much agreed that the mapping was way off. So a bill was passed last session, almost unanimously across the whole, both chambers, that basically said, we're gonna stop this process, this WUI code. We're gonna ask DNR to redo the mapping with certain parameters, and that was supposed to be then just kind of slowing the train down and getting it right. Well, apparently, there's a new bill this year, like somebody's not happy with that, and so I'm hearing that there's a bill that would kind of undo some of that slowing down and trying to get it right, and there's concern. So like City of Tumwater was one of the people that reached out to me last year, and so I'm reaching back out to Tumwater to see if they know what this new bill is and do they have concerns about it. The battle that didn't really get resolved was, once we have good mapping and it's really appropriately scoped, what are going to be the requirements? And the big controversy is there's home hardening requirements. This is about, protecting urban areas from fire on places where there's an interface between wildland and urban areas. And so are we going to make people do home hardening? Are we going to make there's like tree buffers, like cut all the trees within 30 feet or whatever. And that's, from tree advocates' point of view, overkill, and the home hardening is a lot more important than the tree piece. And there's different fire science out there about, what kinds of, there's obviously an argument that, trees can actually be a piece of resiliency if they're, if things are done appropriately. So I think there's a big argument coming about the substantive WUI requirements, and I thought it was going to be something that we would deal with in the future, but it's coming back up because someone's got a law that's trying to force the issue back, and so I'm trying to learn more about it. I'm just kind of flagging it. I will reach out to Tumwater and see what they know, because they were big, deeply into it through the Association of Washington Cities. Because, for example, the previous mapping had the entire city of Tumwater in the WUI, which, we can all imagine areas of Tumwater that shouldn't be considered wildland urban interface. So, more to come. That's just something that I'm kind of dealing with, and it may come up at my State Building Code Council meeting on Friday. Because ultimately that WUI code was supposed to go to the State Building Code Council, although that fix last year kind of limited our power in some regards, but it's still going to be something I'm sure the Building Code Council will discuss.
I know you enjoyed those conversations last year, and
Well, it was rough because I was brand new to the council, and this was this was like, first thing out of the gate, everyone was going crazy about the WUI code, and it took me a while to even understand, what it was all about. And it was hard to jump into a new council and exercise influence when I didn't totally understand the issue, and I didn't understand the way the council works. So yeah, it was very stressful last year, but we hoped that we had gotten it solved with a good process forward, but I'm afraid that that'll get undone if we're not vigilant this year. Okay, that's my update for external boards.
I have your, the information for the RDF.
Okay.
So for the retail delivery fee, so it would impose a retail delivery fee on each retailer equal to 35 cents on each retail sale that constitutes a retail delivery. It does provide an exemption to retailers that made retail sales totaling less than $1 million in the previous calendar year. And also exempts orders under $50 and retail deliveries of non-taxable food, prescription drugs, food and hygiene projects, and certain medical equipment from the fee. And it would start, if it was approved, beginning January 1st, 2027. And by January 1st of each year thereafter, raise the fee by 3%. It creates a new transportation funding stabilization account in the state treasury, and it distributes 40% of the total revenue deposited in the account to counties.
Did you say sales
Sounds
under
too good.
$50?
Yeah.
And it requires that the revenue be spent solely for the purpose of the preservation and maintenance of county-owned roadways or transportation assets. And it distributes the revenue to counties. It replicates the motor vehicle fuel tax distribution. So,
Okay, that's very good information. Thank you.
That's great.
That sounds reasonable, I guess. Exempting small sellers, exempting small sales, exempting certain products, giving us 40%, 85 cents. Okay, well, that's good information. Let's go to commissioner items. Anything additional to bring up? I was gonna just give you guys a kind of a recap of Commissioner Mejia and I's trip to Seattle for the FIFA World Cup. Frankly, it wasn't new information. I mean, there was a few pieces of new information. One was that there's a handbook coming out from the group. We're supposed to have it in the beginning part of February. And that's really, I think, a trigger for us to sort of look through that and then start to organize locally. We'll probably have to start with some kind of committee. I mean, we started with the mayor's meeting. It could stay there, but however that we want to construct that. The first task at hand is going to be to talk about what organization will basically support this effort. They've strongly encouraged local governments not to try to lift something like this up themselves, but to employ your visitor convention bureau or your economic development council, or hire consultants that have expertise on launching an event of this scale. And then location's obviously going to be something to discuss, but the basic requirements are pretty minimal at this point. It has to be transit friendly, transit accessible. We have to operate on all 6 Seattle game days. We have to approve any corporate sponsors through FIFA. So like FIFA's Adidas, so like we can't like sign a contract with Nike necessarily unless FIFA were to, not that that's going to happen, but there could be things like that in certain fan zones. So we have to agree with that, and then they have a set of responsibilities they're going to share. They're looking for federal and state money that would be for things like security and infrastructure. They'll be sharing of those with Fan Zone. We'll get licensed. We'll get help with the licensing to show the view. I'm recapping the FIFA thing for the.
You did an excellent
What
job.
about police? Like,
You did really good.
we'll get money for us having to have like police and.
Potentially, no promises, but they're seeking that money and for that purpose. A lot of questions from the group about
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
What monies are we likely to see for what purposes? And that was the main kind of Q&A part of the thing. All of the 9 fan zones, 8 had representatives at the meeting, so it was good, well represented. Folks had flown in from Spokane. The mayor of Spokane flew in. I mean, it was pretty cool.
Cool.
So hopefully, within a month or so, we can start thinking about that, because it's 500 days. It goes fast when you're trying to pull off something on the scale.
I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. Yeah, I thank you for allowing me to go to that as well. It was something I've, followed my whole life, and it's very exciting. I think the location will be the first piece to figure out within all the jurisdictions of where we want to host it. and then from there, maybe hirings. I'm not sure what the process is like. Do we choose location first, and then do we choose like the person who's going to be putting it on, or other way around?
I think that there's gonna have to be kind of a steering committee of sorts that stays involved. We don't just, hand this off. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I think leaders are gonna wanna just kind of guide this through, so that we make sure things stay on track with our vision. But discussing that vision up front is, I think, the key. So we get launched. We did external, yeah,
They didn't give you guys like a playbook for this?
That's coming.
February.
Yeah, that's what I was like,
That's why I say
come on.
February, we're getting a
Yeah.
playbook.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that I just saw these new cups. This is all I have to say about this whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that there are these new cups that you can get where you blow in them and it makes a soccer horn. And I sometimes to Tina said, we need to be the loudest
Thurston County
county.
Fan Zone.
Loudest
Insignia
county.
cups.
Put
Just
Thurston
hope
County
that
on
the folks
those.
that came to our meeting last night don't also order those for the next meeting.
Yeah, because I'm like, dude, we could be the best, like Thurston County logo, and anyway, I'm all about that. I'm happy to represent and make us, this super cool as like a real community. I really think it's a great opportunity for our community to, heck yeah, get everybody outside. But everyone also will be drunk. So like, that's why I say we need to be considering, what that's like.
I mean,
That's real.
I really like events in different communities that I've lived. There are just certain unique events that pull from all stratum, and there aren't
So
that many
fun.
events that really do that, and this has the potential to be one of those.
Right.
Ethnic groups, socioeconomic groups
Yep, this
that are
does.
gonna come out that wouldn't come to, maybe Pride or something, or wouldn't come to,
Even
Big
football,
fair.
and baseball, like it's different. This is a different thing that really will bring everybody together.
can really bring community
Yeah,
together.
so I'm excited about it. It's good.
You wanna catch up on any external board reports? that you have?
I stayed at the EDC board meeting after you took off, and we got a presentation from Renee Radcliffe Sinclair from TVW, talking about their vision for investing in their buildings. So they have a big plan and I wouldn't imagine, or I wouldn't be surprised if they come talk to us about it, but they plan on building out their building that they're out on, what is it, Union and Capitol?
Something like that.
So they want to build it out, more community space. They have 4 production rooms. They want 15. And they were talking about they're one of the, out of like production companies, they're the one, they make how does she put it? In the entire world, they make more content than most TV stations anywhere. And then she was showing a hot map of everybody that watches TVW, and she explained that they went bananas during the pandemic because it all kind of started here, and everybody was watching TVW to see what was going on in Washington. And so their viewership spread all over the world and has kind of stayed that way. And she showed a map of the entire world, and they're watching in Botswana, they're watching in India, they're watching in Djibouti, and it was everywhere. And so it's pretty impressive what they put out. They said everything that they put out has about 10,000 viewers that are watching everything from a Supreme Court hearing to some educational show on how laws are made.
San Recovery Council meetings.
Yeah, put it on TVW.
It's my big moment.
That's it, yeah. And then a budget note presentation, and then we got an introduction with Annette Roth, who is the EDD director. So they propped up last year the EDC in cooperation with 5 other EDCs, propped up what's called an economic development district, which is like an umbrella economic development organization that allows for harnessing federal funds to come in and do all kinds of economic development things. And she's just getting started. She's on day 4.
But where did she looked familiar to me. Where did she
She
come
was
from?
with Arts WA, but then 6 years ago, she was with the EDC. So you might have seen her in the last couple of years. She was propping up creative arts districts all over the state. And so we used her in Tenino to create a creative arts district, Olympia. Yelm was working on those. And she basically founded that program and guided it for 6 years. Josh, you might have lots of things to say about these. I mean, do you
She's
know
great.
any
That's-
more about the EDD concept?
It's about time. This region should have had that for a while, so it's 5-county region. And then, like you said, to access federal funds is gonna be a big deal. So, Annette's been at the EDC, she's great. I think it's a good next step.
Yes. Yeah, it's exciting. So, she may come before us at some point and introduce what she does. I don't know. She's got a 90-day plan, and Annette knows what she's doing. She's a sharp cookie. If cookies are sharp. Sharp cookie, did I say
I
it?
wonder how that came from.
Sharp cookie,
People
sharp.
say that.
Do they say that? Okay, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why they say that.
I'm gonna look it up. I'll tell you later. I always
Sharp
look it up.
potato. Tough cookie?
Tough cookie.
Tough
I knew I
cookie.
said it. My dad does that all the time.
Tough
Mixes
He's
cookie.
like, yeah, he mixes them up, and I'm like, I don't
cookies
want
tough.
to do that
That's
when I
not-
get older.
Tough cookie's not a positive.
Oh, I know, I have to go. No, she's hanging with her, and I have to leave. Yep, I told her, to keep me on track. Yeah, one more minute. Tough cookie, sharp cookie.
Which one is it? I don't even know. I'm turning into my father.
Smart cookie.
Smart cookie.
I like tough cookie.
You like tough cookie.
How do you get a cookie smart? I mean,
None of it makes sense anymore.
no.
Dogs and cats are getting along. Cookies are smart.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Grant. Okay, so then, we were just on any other random commissioner items. Good to go? All right,
Wait, I have one, sorry.
go ahead.
I'm just sending this to you now, Commissioner Mejia. It's regarding Orca. Since you were the alternate representing the county for the last part of the year last year, I thought I'd forward you the evaluation form for the director, just in case you wanted to provide input.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Do not put, she's a sharp cookie.
Smart
in the
cookie is a-
evaluation. Yeah.
According to Google, smart
Google
cookie
it
is.
first.
Okay, 2:00, we're adjourned.
Awesome.